Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. This segment is brought to you by CommercialAgentSuccess.com. It is video training for commercial agents. Check it out at CommercialAgentSuccess.com. Today we're talking about retail. We're talking about retail real estate. Please welcome my next guest. It's Jeremy Cohen. He's a partner with the law firm Hartman Simons, and they do a tremendous amount of retail legal work around the country. Jeremy, thanks for joining us.
Michael, thanks for having me, as always.
Well, Jeremy, one thing I'm curious about, that we hear a lot of things in the news, and then obviously we see it in our work, that some retailers are having a hard time. So when you're working for your clients out there that own a lot of retail properties, what are the trends on tenant defaults? Are you hearing a little bit more about defaults than you have? What do you see as a trend there?
I would like to tell you I'm not. I wish I could say that was the case. It's unfortunate, I think, that as this real estate cycle, which in my mind started somewhere around second half of 2012, so we're 6.5 years into the cycle. That's sort of a natural progression, and there's going to be a fallout of some of the tenants that either weren't as successful or have gotten squeezed by either, whether it's the internet, so the Amazons of the world, or the better operators. And as a result, unfortunately, the trend that I'm starting to see now is you're having folks start to close their doors. Yeah. Sears just announced, obviously they had announced last year that they're filing bankruptcy. Eddie Lampert trying to save them from doing that and trying to keep 400 or 500 stores open. But at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of product that's still going to be coming back on the market. Yeah. And that's good and bad. Yeah. It's good because then you have the retailers that are stronger operators, the ones that are still going strong, will cherry pick some of those locations and be able to redevelop, to get into those locations at hopefully a fair price. And then what we're seeing a lot of, what I'm still seeing a lot of, is the Sears stores that are going back that are on the malls, all redevelopment opportunities. Okay. So you have all of the mall owners, bigger ones, Simon and the REITs of the world that own the malls, are going to start knocking those down and either doing some sort of mixed use in terms of residential, or you're going to see office. I mean, so you're seeing, and we're seeing a lot of different, redevelopments going on.
And aside from the big boxes that everyone kind of sees and knows about defaulting, when you come to more of the, I guess, other shop tenants and smaller tenants, are you seeing more kind of local tenant defaults, mom and pops, or are you seeing more restaurants? Or
I'd say restaurants. From personal experience, over the last 3 or 4 months, I've seen several different mom and pop or chef-driven restaurants that just didn't work. Yeah. And whether it was an issue of location, whether it was an issue of traffic, whether for whatever reasons that they were not as successful as they had hoped or thought, and they just went ahead and unfortunately shuttered their doors. Yeah. The retailers themselves, from a mom and pop, the smaller ones, it depends on what they are, but the service use type of nail salons, massage places, all those things will sort of continue on, and they're able to survive. Yeah. The chain stores, I think, if you look in the malls, like Gap, Limited, things like that, are all filed if they file bankruptcy, not Gap, of course, because they claim. I met with a woman from Gap, and they're expanding. I mean, they're Old Navy and Gap, or those stores are still doing all right. So I guess it just depends on who the operator is. Right.
And one thing that's happening with retail real estate is land prices have gone up, especially with the multifamily boom and a lot of other great things with the economy. And some people are putting smaller stores on less spaces. As a lawyer helping with these type of developments, helping clients, what do you see there?
That's an excellent point. It does add, anytime if you certainly have a mixed use project and you're trying to have more than one use in a smaller space. If you have retail on a bottom level, followed by a couple levels of office, followed by residential up top, depending on, let's say it's 5 or 6 story building, each component is going to be sharing sort of the same common areas, the same parking, and all of the the amenities that are located within that one building. it becomes, from a lawyer's standpoint, it's great because it takes a lot of time to actually.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to think through the maturations of how does this all fit together. Where are these people all going to park? I've got a restaurant down there. Well, restaurants are notorious parking hogs. Where are they all going to park? Do we have valet parking? Is it self-parking combination of valet, and who runs the valet stand? Is it for the restaurants during night, but during the day it turns out there's a mixed use, there's a restaurant and a hotel. Hotel likes valet parking. So you have all those inner workings of different, because you're right, it's a smaller plot of land and more uses on it. It definitely is a harder structure to work through some of the, different, first of all, cost sharing, and the different legalities of how it's all going to play out from a practical world.
And are some of the retail tenants struggle with that are maybe used to just being in a plain Jane retail development with a lot of parking?
They absolutely do, and it's not their fault.
Right.
And if I represented the retail tenants, and I obviously represent tenants as well, it's difficult to understand. Hey, this is how we've done this. What do you mean it's going to cost X amount of dollars more? We've always paid. This is the high end of what we've paid. Now you're asking me to pay $8 for CAM when I'm used to paying $1.50 or $2. It's hard for them to. And they have to, the people on the front lines for the retailers have to, the real estate managers and the folks then have to go back to their executive committees and say, hey, if we really want to be here, this is what it's going to take, and this is why they're telling us it's going to be so much more expensive. And to some extent, it's you have to go a little bit on faith.
Yeah.
This is and for the landlords, if they haven't done it before, a lot of my clients, this is new for them as well. Hey, we realize we can't just build 100,000 square feet of retail. We've got to do a bunch of different things. What are you seeing? How do you structure it? Okay, well, we have some experience. We have projects in the Atlanta area that have mixed uses. This is how they did it. This is how it worked. So.
Yeah, and you think about mixed use today, and there's a lot of different variances in the type of mixed use. I mean, even just a normal retail shopping center, we have office tenants, and we have service tenants, and we have medical tenants, and then to the pure kind of mixed use new development where it's kind of designed that way to begin with, right?
And that's exactly right. And I don't think I've ever seen I haven't seen medical and residential mixed yet. That's the one sort of combination that hasn't come about. But unless your client, who's a landlord developer, has a picture in its mind from the outset as to what it's going to look like, we'll take all comers. What is it that makes sense? And for them, again, because of the way retail has evolved and contracted, what is going to make me the best return on my investment? And I think the last time you and I were together, we talked about the fact that if you have a different asset class, like a residential, a medical, or office, in addition to retail, at least you're spreading your risk, because hopefully they're not all going down at the same time.
Right.
And then that helps, and that certainly makes it a little bit easier to stomach, as it were.
Right. And on some of these mixed-use projects, Jeremy, do you have different ownership of the different property types?
And you absolutely do.
Now you got another layer of complications.
You want, we talk about if you want to add 50% headaches to your deal, take on a partner. And so, on this case, and sometimes you have three. You have one developer that owns the top 3 floors for the residential, and then the office developer owns the middle 2, and the retail is owned by somebody else. So you have one overall developer, but he has partners for each of those. So he does own all. Let's say he's a member, 50% member on all 3 components or 2 components, whatever it is. But definitely has, which again, that just adds a legal standpoint. It's fantastic because it's another layer of legal complexity that you have to work through all those gyrations.
And when you have different ownerships, and then one developer's doing an apartment, and someone's doing retail, and maybe you have another retailer owns a box, and you have all these different owners, and you also have to set up some associations, right? And that control this whole project for really its lifetime.
Correct.
And that's kind of interesting legal work, I would think, because you're trying to set up something today. Do you really know what colors and designs and things you really want to prohibit 50 years from now?
You don't, and a lot of it's guesswork.
Yeah.
But it's been going on. They've been REAs, OEAs, however you want to call the document that governs the overall operation of the center. Even back in the malls, when they did the malls in the 70s, when the malls first came out in the 70s, they said, okay, we have to have this document that lasts for 40 years and then has renewal options, whatever it may be. You're guessing. The question becomes, who controls it? who is going to have the right to approve those future colors and information that, you're right, you don't know. And the other point is, if you do give somebody else the right to be an approving party or one of the people that makes the decision, you have no idea who you're going to be in bed with in 10 years or 15 years. And you know, you and I get along great now, and we're going to live this forever. But you, turns out, unfortunately pass away, or I pass away, and my wife takes over, and my wife is mean, or you know, you don't know who you're going to be in bed with.
Right.
And
Well,
so
they sell, yeah.
right, and giving away whoever control or power on those sorts of projects is tough.
Yeah.
And it's hard. You can't, as a lawyer, you can't plan for everything.
Right.
You could, but then the 50, 100-page documents would be 250 pages, and even then you would still forget
Right.
things. Yeah, I've been doing this long enough to know there's no way I can get everything.
Right.
So
try to get everything that you can.
you know, lawyers often, most of my brethren, draft provisions often based on times their clients have gotten burned or things that went wrong.
Right.
And so we didn't account for that.
Right.
I never in my wildest dreams thought that could happen.
Right.
So the next time, what are you going to do? I'm going to make sure that whatever
Right.
that was doesn't, you know, if this happens, here's what's going to happen. You know, here's how this goes down.
Yeah.
So
well, you know, and therein lies the value of a professional, whether it's a broker or lawyer, that focuses on one thing. And so you see more issues with retail, and you're dealing with it all the time, so it just adds more value. What would you leave our audience with to think about related to retail moving forward?
For moving forward, cautious, you know, cautiously optimistic. I mentioned we had read an article recently that said that retail's certainly not going to die anytime soon. People still like going to stores, trying shoes, whatever it may be, and to get away, you know, the buzzwords there, and I can't say the word, it always throws me off, experiential real estate, doing some kind of place where people want to go, a Topgolf, a destination, and then hopefully having offshoots from that. So I think cautiously optimistic, move forward with, retail's not going anywhere. We're going to be it's going to be around for the foreseeable future, but you know, I wouldn't be jumping in. If you haven't done it before, I wouldn't jump in, you know, with full feet right now. So
Right, start right now.
Right.
All right, Jeremy, thanks, great information. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us out there around the world, around the country. Appreciate you watching the show or listening. And hey, have you seen us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter? Please check it out. You can find all of our connections at commercialrealestateshow.com. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for America's Commercial Real Estate Show.